My parents said I ruined their lives by being born. Stay with me through this story, and if it reaches your heart, remember to show some love by subscribing, liking, and sharing with someone who might need to hear it. Nia Caldwell had grown used to silence. At 17, she learned it was safer to stay quiet than to give her parents any reason to notice her. Elias and Portia Caldwell were not the kind of parents who looked at their daughter with pride or joy. Instead, they looked at her as a mistake, something that stole away the life they believed they deserved. From the time she could understand words, Nia was told she was an accident. Portia would remind her whenever things got hard. "If you hadn't been born, I'd still have my dream life," she would say while rolling her eyes. Elias wasn't much different. He blamed Nia for every missed opportunity, every disappointment, and every rough patch they faced. To them, she was a burden, never a blessing. Their house was full of tension. Nia often ate dinner alone, listening to the sound of her parents arguing about money, jobs, or each other. But somehow, those fights always circled back to her existence. She ruined their plans. She cost them everything. She was nothing but a reminder of dreams that never came true. As a child, Nia tried everything to win their love. She would bring home drawings from school, but they ended up in the trash. She would work hard to get good grades, but Elias would brush her off, saying grades didn't change the fact that she had ruined his life. Every effort ended the same way, with disappointment pressing down on her small shoulders. By the time she reached her teenage years, Nia stopped trying. The hope that maybe they would see her for who she was had faded. Instead, she carried her strength in silence. She became observant, noticing how other families laughed together, hugged each other, and celebrated the smallest things. She longed for that kind of love, but she knew it wasn't waiting for her at home. At night, lying awake in her small room, she wondered if she was truly the problem. Was she really the reason her parents never found happiness? The question ate at her, making her chest heavy. But deep down, she sensed the truth. Love shouldn't come with conditions. And if her parents couldn't love her simply for being their daughter, maybe they never would. Still, she endured. Day after day, insult after insult, she carried herself with quiet strength. Her heart hurt, but her spirit did not break. Somewhere inside, Nia knew she deserved more than this life of blame and neglect. She couldn't see it yet, but the same pain that tore her down was slowly building the strength she would one day use to escape and build something better. For now, though, Nia was just a 17-year-old girl surviving in a house where she was never wanted, but silently waiting for the day she could finally be free. The shouting started like it always did, small and sharp, but this time it grew louder, heavier, and harder to ignore. Nia sat at the kitchen table, her hands resting on the edge, as her parents' words cut into her like knives. Elias leaned back in his chair, his face twisted in anger. "You don't even know how lucky you are. We give you a roof, food, and clothes, and you still act like we owe you something." Portia's eyes narrowed, her voice colder than the night air outside. "Ungrateful, that's what you are, Nia. You never appreciate what we've done for you." Nia's chest tightened. She had no idea what they thought they had done for her, other than remind her daily that she was a mistake. She opened her mouth to defend herself, but the words caught in her throat. Before she could even try, Portia's hand struck her cheek, sharp and stinging. The room froze. For a moment, Nia just stood there, her face burning, her heart racing. Portia's words landed harder than the slap itself. "If you never came along, I'd be living my dream life. Do you understand that? You ruined everything the moment you were born." Nia swallowed hard, the lump in her throat almost choking her. She wanted to cry, to run, to disappear. But instead, she stood still, her body trembling as her mother turned away, brushing the moment off like it meant nothing. Later that night, Nia sat in her room, her door slightly open. She heard voices drifting from the living room. Her parents were laughing, their tone lighter now, as if nothing had happened. Elias chuckled. "I can't wait for this trip. Just a week away from everything. Finally some peace." Portia added, her voice sharp with mockery. "And the best part? We don't even have to take her with us. Let her sit here and rot. She'll be fine on her own." They laughed together, careless, almost joyful. Nia's stomach dropped. They weren't just planning a vacation. They were celebrating the idea of leaving her behind, as if she were nothing more than an unwanted pet. Something inside her shifted. For years she had cried quietly into her pillow, hoping one day things might change. But now, as their laughter echoed down the hallway, the tears dried before they could even fall. She sat up in bed, her fists clenched, her heart pounding with a new kind of strength. If they could abandon her so easily, then maybe it was time she stopped waiting for their love. Maybe it was time she stopped hoping they would see her value. She realized she didn't need to be trapped in this house, this prison of blame and cruelty. That night, as her parents dreamed of beaches and vacations without her, Nia lay awake with a different dream. For the first time in her life, she wasn't planning how to survive another day with them. She was planning how to leave. The house was quiet, the kind of silence that felt heavy and dangerous. Nia sat on the edge of her small bed, staring at the worn backpack she had laid out hours earlier. Her heart thudded against her chest, every beat reminding her of the risk she was about to take. She had thought about leaving before, but tonight felt different. Tonight, the choice was clear: stay and be broken, or go and find something better. She moved carefully, folding the few clothes she owned and tucking them into the backpack. The fabric was thin, some torn at the edges, but they were all she had. Next, she reached for the small envelope hidden under her mattress. Inside was $200, the money she had managed to save from babysitting, cleaning jobs, and whatever work she could find without her parents noticing. It wasn't much, but to Nia, it felt like a lifeline. Before zipping the bag, she paused and reached for the framed photo sitting on her nightstand. It was her late grandmother, the only person who had ever shown her real love. Her grandmother's gentle smile in that picture had carried Nia through countless dark nights. She pressed the photo to her chest, whispering, "I'll make you proud," before sliding it carefully into the backpack. The house creaked as she stood, and Nia froze, holding her breath. From down the hall, she heard her father's faint snore and her mother shifting in her sleep. Relief washed over her, but her hands still shook as she eased the bedroom door open. The hallway stretched before her, dim and cold. She tiptoed across the floorboards, praying they wouldn't groan beneath her weight. At the front door, she hesitated. The fear of being caught wrapped itself around her like chains. She imagined Portia's sharp voice, Elias's angry footsteps, the slap across her face. But then she remembered the sound of their laughter when they planned to leave her behind. That memory burned away her fear. She gripped the doorknob, turned it slowly, and slipped outside. The night air hit her skin, cool and freeing. The street was empty, the world asleep, but Nia felt more alive than she ever had. She walked quickly, clutching the straps of her backpack, her eyes darting at every shadow. Her heart raced, not just from fear of being caught, but from the possibility of finally escaping. At the bus station, the lights flickered above her, and the old benches were filled with strangers. She stepped up to the counter, her voice trembling as she asked for a ticket. "Atlanta," she said, choosing it in the moment because it was far, and far was all she needed. When the bus pulled away from the station, Nia pressed her forehead to the window, watching the dark streets blur into nothing. She didn't know what waited for her in Atlanta, but she knew one thing with certainty. She would never go back. Atlanta was bigger and louder than anything Nia had ever known. The streets buzzed with cars, voices, and music that poured out of passing windows. But beneath the noise was a reality she couldn't ignore. She was on her own. The first nights were the hardest. She stretched her money carefully, eating cheap meals and staying in small motels when she could. Some nights, she slept on bus benches, her backpack clutched tightly against her chest, whispering to herself that this was only temporary. To survive, she searched for whatever work she could find. At a small diner, she washed dishes for hours, the hot steam burning her hands, but she was grateful for the pay. When that shift ended, she cleaned motel rooms, scrubbing floors and folding sheets that smelled of bleach. She also babysat for strangers who didn't ask too many questions, keeping their children safe while silently wishing someone had once cared for her that way. Every day was a struggle, but every dollar she earned felt like a step away from the life she left behind. Even when exhaustion weighed on her body, there was a quiet strength growing inside her. One rainy afternoon, Nia found herself back at the same diner where she had washed dishes weeks earlier. This time, she wasn't hiding in the back. She sat at the counter, her hair damp, her eyes tired but steady. Behind the counter was Ms. Darlene Whitaker, the owner. Darlene was a woman in her late 50s with warm eyes and a no-nonsense way of speaking. She noticed Nia's worn clothes, the way her shoulders slumped with fatigue, and the determination hiding behind her quiet voice when she asked, "Do you need any help around here?" Darlene studied her for a long moment, then smiled. "I could use an extra pair of hands. But you look like you need more than just a job." From that day on, Nia became part of the diner. She cleared tables, took orders, and even helped Darlene in the kitchen. The work was tough, but there was kindness woven into it, something she had never known at home. Darlene made sure she ate, sliding plates of food onto the counter with a gentle nod. Sometimes she'd ask questions about Nia's life, but never pushed too far. Weeks turned into months, and the bond between them grew. One night, after seeing Nia preparing to sleep in the back booth, Darlene shook her head and handed her a key. "I've got a spare room upstairs. It's small, but it's safe. No child should be wandering these streets alone." Tears stung Nia's eyes as she accepted the offer. For the first time in her life, she had a place where she wasn't just tolerated, she was cared for. Lying in that tiny room with clean sheets and the faint smell of coffee drifting up from the diner below, Nia let herself dream. For the first time, the future didn't feel like a curse. It felt like hope. Nia's days at the diner slowly turned into something steady, almost like a rhythm she could trust. She worked hard, saved her money, and found comfort in the little room upstairs. But life changed again when she met Imani Brooks. Imani was a college student who often came to the diner between her classes. She carried heavy textbooks and wore glasses that slid down her nose, but what stood out most was her energy, sharp, confident, and unapologetic. One afternoon, while waiting for her order, she noticed Nia scribbling something in a notebook behind the counter. "You study?" Imani asked, her tone curious but kind. Nia hesitated. "Not really. Just writing things down." Imani leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "You sound smart. You in school?" The question made Nia's stomach twist. She lowered her gaze and admitted softly, "I dropped out. Didn't really have a choice." Instead of judging her, Imani smiled. "Then we'll fix that." From that day, Imani became a constant in Nia's life. She would bring her coffee and sit across the booth, helping her review books and practice test questions. She told Nia about the GED and explained how finishing it could open doors. At first, Nia resisted. The voice of her parents still echoed in her mind. Worthless, a mistake, nothing special. But Imani refused to let those words stick. "You're not what they said you are," Imani told her firmly one evening. "You're smart and you've got fight in you. Don't waste that." Those words planted something inside Nia. It felt small at first, like a spark, but it grew each time Imani pushed her to keep going. Together, they went through lessons, math problems, and essays. Nia struggled, but with every small success, her confidence began to build. When she finally took the GED exam and passed, she cried in the diner's back room, clutching the paper in her hands. Darlene hugged her, proud like a mother, while Imani grinned and said, "Told you. This is just the beginning." Imani didn't stop there. She encouraged Nia to think about community college, explaining how it could lead to bigger opportunities. At first, Nia laughed it off. College was for other people, not for her. But late at night, she caught herself imagining what it would be like to sit in a classroom again, not as a lost child, but as someone with purpose. For the first time, she started to believe she wasn't broken. She wasn't the girl who had been told she ruined lives. She was someone who could build one of her own. Still, as her confidence grew, so did another thought. Quiet but persistent, it lived in the back of her mind. Her parents. They had tried to break her, but instead, they had made her stronger. And one day she would prove it, not just to herself, but to them too. The seeds of ambition were taking root, and with them, the quiet beginnings of revenge. Nia's world shifted once she stepped into community college. At first, the classrooms felt overwhelming, full of students who seemed more confident and prepared. But she refused to let doubt pull her backward. Every night, she studied with determination, fueled by the encouragement of Imani and the steady support of Darlene. Slowly, her efforts paid off. Professors noticed her focus, and when scholarship applications came around, Nia poured her story onto paper. To her surprise, doors opened. With each award letter she received, it felt like someone was finally saying, "You belong here." Business management caught her attention more than anything else. She loved the idea of building something from the ground up, controlling her own future instead of letting others decide it for her. The more she learned, the more she imagined herself creating something meaningful, not just for money, but to prove that she could. During this time, her bond with Imani grew even deeper. What started as study sessions turned into brainstorming nights. They sat in coffee shops, scribbling on napkins about the kind of company they could build together. Nia had always been good at organization and planning, while Imani had a natural flair for networking and creativity. One night, After pulling together a birthday celebration for a mutual friend, they looked at each other and realized they had stumbled onto something real. Event planning, Imani said with a grin. We could make this work. And they did. At first, it was small: baby showers, graduation parties, small weddings. They worked tirelessly, sometimes staying up all night to make sure decorations were perfect and schedules were tight. Clients noticed their effort, their professionalism, and most importantly, the heart they put into everything they touched. Word spread quickly. Soon, bigger events came their way, and with them, bigger opportunities. Nia's name started to carry weight in the community. People respected her, not just for her talent, but for her resilience. She carried herself with quiet confidence, her once hidden strength now shining in every meeting, every phone call, every successful event. She no longer saw the girl her parents tried to convince her she was. She saw a woman who had carved out her own place in the world. Despite her busy life, she never once reached out to Elias or Portia. There was no need. Yet, a part of her remained curious. Late at night, she would search public records, keeping tabs on them from a distance. She knew where they lived, the jobs they held or lost, and the debts piling against their names. It wasn't out of longing. It was out of awareness. She wanted to know, not because she missed them, but because she would never let herself be blindsided again. Success was hers now, earned on her own terms. And while her parents had once told her she ruined their lives, she now carried proof that she could build one stronger, brighter, and entirely her own. Years rolled by, and Nia's business continued to thrive. She was no longer just the girl who had run away with nothing but a backpack. She was a woman with a career, stability, and respect. Life felt steady, but the past had a way of finding cracks to slip through. One evening, after finishing up a client meeting, Nia sat down with her laptop to check routine paperwork. Out of habit, she also searched public records, something she did every few months to keep tabs on Elias and Portia. What she found this time was different. Elias's name came up tied to an unemployment claim. He had lost his job almost a year earlier. Portia's name appeared on court records, connected to multiple debts and unpaid credit cards. Their house was listed under foreclosure proceedings. Nia leaned back in her chair, the information sinking in. The people who once told her she ruined their lives were now watching their own lives collapse piece by piece. A strange mix of emotions hit her: pity, anger, and an odd sense of closure. In the weeks that followed, news trickled in through the grapevine. Old neighbors who still lived near her parents shared bits of gossip when she happened to see them in town. Elias was drinking more, bitter about losing his career. Portia was scrambling, borrowing money from anyone foolish enough to lend it. Together, they were sinking, angry at the world for not giving them the life they believed they deserved. Then came the first direct sign. A letter appeared at the diner addressed to Nia, the handwriting sharp and unmistakable. She opened it with caution. Inside, Portia's words spilled out, dripping with a false sweetness. "We've fallen on hard times, but you're doing so well. Don't you think it's time you gave back? After all, we raised you. You owe us that much." Nia's stomach turned. Raised her? All she remembered was neglect and blame. She set the letter down, fighting the mix of emotions stirring inside her. For years, she had imagined what it would feel like if her parents ever reached out. Would they apologize? Would they finally see her worth? Now she had her answer. They weren't reaching out for love. They wanted money. A week later, Portia showed up outside one of Nia's events, standing near the door as if she belonged there. Her face carried the same sharpness, but her eyes had desperation behind them. When Nia saw her, Portia smiled like they had never been apart. "Baby, we need to talk. You can help us. We know you can." It was in that moment Nia understood clearly. Her parents hadn't changed. They weren't coming to make amends or to admit their wrongs. They were coming because they saw her as a bank, a safety net to catch them after they had burned through everything else. And Nia promised herself she would never let them pull her back into their darkness again. The ballroom sparkled with soft lights, flowers, and music. Nia moved with ease through the crowd, greeting guests and checking details. It was one of the biggest events her company had ever managed, a charity gala filled with community leaders and families dressed in their best. Everything was perfect, until she heard the voices she had hoped never to hear again. "Nia!" Portia's shrill tone cut through the laughter and music. Heads turned as she and Elias pushed their way inside, their clothes wrinkled and their faces worn. Nia's chest tightened, but she stood tall, refusing to let her fear show. Portia marched up to her, voice loud enough for the entire room. Look at you, pretending to be someone important. While your parents are struggling, you're living high. You owe us, Nia. We gave you life, and this is how you repay us. Guests whispered, their eyes darting between Nia and the couple, causing a scene. Elias chimed in, his voice bitter. All this success? It should be ours too. You think you got here alone? We raised you, and now you want to pretend we don't exist. For a moment, Nia felt the old shame tugging at her chest. Years ago, those words would have crushed her. But now, she stood in her own world, one she had built without them. She raised her hand gently to calm the murmurs in the room and spoke with steady control. Let's step outside, she said firmly. Her voice carried authority, and though Portia smirked as if she had won, Nia knew she hadn't. She led them to a quiet hallway away from the guests. Portia crossed her arms, eyes flashing with anger. Elias hovered behind her, scowling. You're going to give us something, Portia demanded. We sacrificed everything for you. Nia took a breath, and for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid. Her voice was calm but sharp, each word deliberate. You told me my life ruined yours. You said it so many times I almost believed it. But standing here now, I see the truth. You ruined your own lives. I didn't take your dreams from you. You destroyed them yourselves. Portia's face twisted. How dare you speak to me like that? After everything we did. Everything you did? Nia interrupted, her voice firm. You neglected me. You blamed me. You laughed about leaving me behind. Don't stand here and act like you loved me. You never did. Elias stepped forward, his voice booming. You're selfish. After all these years, you can't even help your own family. Nia's eyes locked onto his, unflinching. Family isn't about blood. It's about love, respect, and care. You gave me none of that. And I don't owe you anything. Their insults came faster. Selfish, ungrateful, cold. But for once, their words had no power. Nia stood tall, her strength unshaken. When she turned to walk back into the ballroom, she didn't look back. For the first time, she was free from their voices. Nia returned to the ballroom with her parents trailing behind, their voices sharp, their faces twisted with desperation. The whispers of the guests grew louder, and though the scene could have ruined the night, Nia lifted her chin and chose calm over chaos. She signaled to the event staff to keep things moving while she faced Elias and Portia head-on. Portia grabbed her arm, her voice loud enough for those nearby to hear. We're not leaving until you do right by us. You have money, and we need it. You owe us that much. Nia pulled her arm free, her voice firm but even. I don't owe you anything. Not money. Not shelter. Not a place in my life. Elias sneered, his tone bitter. You think you're strong now, standing up in front of strangers? You'll regret this when the world turns its back on you. But Nia didn't flinch. For years, their words had been chains around her neck. Now, she felt those chains breaking one by one. The only thing you ever gave me, she said, her voice steady and clear, was the strength to walk away from you. And I thank you for that, because leaving you behind was the best decision I ever made. Her words landed hard. Portia's mouth opened as if to argue, but no sound came out at first. Then the curses started, sharp and ugly, thrown like stones meant to wound. Ungrateful brat, you'll never be happy without us. You'll regret turning your back on your own blood. Elias joined in, his voice booming. We made you who you are. Without us, you'd be nothing. You hear me? Nothing. Their fury might have rattled her once, but now it only revealed the truth. This wasn't love. It was control, the last weapon they thought they had. Nia kept her composure, even as her heart raced. She motioned toward the security team standing nearby. Escort them out, please, she said quietly. The guards moved in, firm but professional, guiding Elias and Portia toward the doors as they shouted and struggled. Their voices echoed across the room, cursing her name, demanding what they thought they deserved. Guests watched in stunned silence, but Nia remained calm, her hands folded neatly in front of her. As the doors closed behind them, a wave of quiet settled over the room. For the first time in her life, she felt something she had never known in their presence, control. Not the kind that crushed or manipulated, but the kind that freed her. She didn't need to raise her voice. She didn't need revenge through cruelty. The power came from denying them the one thing they had always craved, dominance over her. Standing in that elegant ballroom, surrounded by people who respected her, Nia breathed deeply. She wasn't the girl they once called worthless. She was a woman who had drawn her own boundaries and refused to let them cross. And in that refusal, she found victory. After the chaos of that night, Nia sat with Imani and Ms. Darlene in the quiet of the diner after hours. The chairs were turned upside down on the tables, the smell of fresh coffee lingered, and the three of them shared an easy silence that only family could hold. Family, the word carried new meaning for Nia now. It wasn't about blood. It was about choice, about love freely given, about people who stayed when life got heavy. Imani leaned back in her chair, giving Nia that sharp, protective look she had worn since they first met. "You know you did the right thing," she said firmly. "You don't owe them a single thing." Nia nodded, though the weight of the confrontation still pressed on her chest. "I know. I never thought I'd see them again. I didn't think it would hit me this hard." Ms. Darlene reached across the table and placed her warm hand over Nia's. "Baby, you've come too far to let their poison stick to you now. Look at what you've built. Look at the people you've brought into your life. That's what matters." Her words settled deep into Nia's heart. She thought about how she had walked into Atlanta with nothing but a backpack, a wrinkled photo, and a pocket full of hope. Now she had a thriving business, a circle of people who believed in her, and a voice she once thought she'd never find. The next few months only proved how far she had come. Her event planning business expanded, with contracts for weddings, galas, and charity fundraisers pouring in. Instead of celebrating alone, she made it her mission to bring others along with her. She hired young women from shelters, girls who reminded her of herself at 17, scared, quiet, carrying wounds that nobody could see. She gave them jobs, taught them skills, and more than anything, she gave them a sense of belonging. One evening, after everyone had left and the office was dark, Nia pulled out the small, worn photo of her grandmother. The edges were frayed, and the colors had faded, but the image of the woman who once held her with love was still clear. Nia pressed the picture to her heart and whispered into the stillness, her voice trembling with both pain and pride. "They said I ruined their lives by being born. But look at me now, Grandma. I built mine. I built something beautiful." She closed her eyes, imagining her grandmother's soft laugh, the way her arms felt like safety. A tear slipped down her cheek, but it wasn't from sorrow. It was release, a final goodbye to the pain that once defined her. When she opened her eyes, she felt lighter, freer than ever. Nia wasn't the girl her parents had tried to break. She was her own woman, surrounded by love she had chosen, standing strong in a life she had created with her own hands. And in that quiet triumph, she knew she was finally fully free. Do you believe Nia was right to cut ties with her parents for good? Or should she have given them another chance despite everything? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear your perspective. And if stories like this speak to you, make sure to hit subscribe and tap the notification bell so you'll always know when a new one is out.